Howdy everyone, Aaron from Pig Brig here. Today we're going to talk about malted, fermented, and other bait options that you may want to consider at your Pig Brig Trap site. Regardless of the option that you choose, whether it be fermented or malted, the process starts very similar, where we only need a handful of things to get the process underway. And mainly what we're going to think about there is a bucket or a sealable container. You want to make sure you have a water source, obviously the grain that you're going to be using, and full sun to make sure that process kicks off the way that it's supposed to. Whenever we get that process kicked off, the first thing that we want to think about is we don't want to do this in our carport or our garage. We want to get this away from the house. We want to make sure that we're downwind, that we're maybe at a barn structure like what we're at today. So why fermenting? When we ferment bait, we want to try to incorporate that in places that we have non-target species of concern, primarily deer. When we use dry grain, we obviously are going to have that non-target deer concern there. With fermented baits, we do see that repelling ability where with that pungent odor there, it's not something desirable for those deer in that area. And additionally, those pigs doesn't mind that smell or that taste at all. And sometimes you can even see that as an attractant for those animals to come to your Pig Brig Trap site. So how do we ferment? First thing we're going to do is get our grain, make sure that we have those sealable containers readily available. Whatever that may be, you fill up that container to a given level, and then you add water to that process to where that water is sometimes 2-3 inches above the level of the grain in that container. You seal the container, put the container in the direct sunlight or where it can catch direct sunlight, and it only takes, regardless of the time of year, about 3 days to have a fermented bait ready to put at your Pig Brig Trap site. One of the things you can do when fermenting corn to speed that process up a little bit for time concerns is that you can add yeast to that mixture. By adding yeast to the mixture, you're going to actually be able to decrease that fermentation period by at least 24 hours to make sure that you're readily available with that bait in the field in a shorter time frame. So now after 3 days of setting in the sun, whenever you unbox that fermented corn, be ready for what you see. Whenever you open that up, first thing that's going to be obvious to you is the smell. And making sure that you're ready for that, that's not going to catch you off guard. The second thing that you could still possibly see some bubbling in there, so the water churning as that grain continues to ferment. That's what we're looking for. We want a fermented product there. That's something that the pigs are looking for. That's something that you want to see at your Pig Brig Trap site. You also have the option of malting, and malting starts off in the same process as fermentation. The only thing that changes that process is only after 24 hours of the grain setting in water, you drain the grain off and allow that seed to germinate. So what you'll see when you drain the water off after 24 hours, you'll see that grain that's engulfed or engorged with water. Then whenever after exposed to the sunlight, exposed to the atmosphere, it doesn't take but a couple of more days and you'll see that grain actually germinate. Whenever we think about the difference between the malting and the fermented, whenever considering the environmental conditions that the animals may be facing, and primarily a drought situation, when feeding animals in a drought situation, sometimes that fermented corn is still something desirable because there's no other feed alternative that's there. Whenever we have that corn that's malted, that's already started to germinate, there's nothing there that the squirrel is looking for to feed on. Also, the deer doesn't like that plant whenever it's already in the growth process. So the malted option is measured in pounds. Whenever we think about pounds and how much do we use at the trap site, we think about how many pigs we had in the conditioning phase. So we'll allow up to 3 to 4 pounds per pig at the time of set whenever we're considering malted as a baited option. Whenever we transfer that over to the fermented option, fermented still being in a liquid slurry, we're going to take that in the terms of volume. So we want to make sure that we start off with a base of about 4 gallons of bait at the time of set, and each 20 set that we have there, we're going to allow about 4 gallons of bait at that time of set. So whether you choose fermented or malted, it is critically important that you pick one and stay with it from the conditioning phase all the way through the extent of that trapping phase as to not spook those animals. So now that you've seen how to go through the malting and the fermenting process, if you got any other questions about how to actually use it, check out our conditioning and baiting video. And as always, we're here for you at Pig Brig to answer any questions, to go through any concerns that you may have. And remember, stay safe and happy trapping.